Today's lecture will cover fluoroscopy. Fluoroscopy provides dynamic, live, changing images as structures change. Routine radiography utilizes static or unchanging images. Dynamic imaging demonstrates function, structures, and pathology. Thomas Edison invented the fluoroscope in 1896. Technically, what Röntgen had discovered was fluoroscopy, and it requires a specialized tube with the image receptor. The tube emitting radiation is typically below the patient, not above, like traditional radiography. Initially, many early scientists using fluoroscopy received full primary beam radiation to the face and the eyes. After realizing the biological effects, the tube was mounted to a table system and then used mirrors to project the image from the primary beam. The image intensification tubes were developed in 1948. This system was used to video cameras and monitors to view images. Today, thin film transistors, also known as TFTs, are used in digital fluoroscopic systems with post-processing abilities. Fluoroscopy can be used for upper gastrointestinal and lower gastrointestinal and small bowel studies to view the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, or large intestine as contrast is passed through. C-arms are portable fluoroscopic units that are used in surgical suites, patients' rooms, and the emergency room for the placement of lines, ports, pacemakers, and also to check for fracture alignment. The tube and the IR are mounted in a C shape to ensure permanent alignment. The arm can be raised, lowered, rotated, and moved along the length of the body. The two typical designs are under-table units or over-table units. A carriage supports the equipment that is suspended over the table. The image intensification tube for an under-the-table unit or an X-ray tube for an over-the-table unit. It also has controls, tube shutters, and a spot imaging device. Fluoroscopic tubes are designed to operate for longer periods of time at lower MA settings. A diagnostic tube MA setting is typically 50 to 1200. Fluoroscopic tube MA settings are typically 0.5 to 5. The SOD must never be below 15 inches and it can be operated by a foot switch or controls on the carriage. Early fluoroscopic equipment used screens which required an adjusting period for the rods of the eyes to become activated. The image intensification system, which was developed in 1948, allowed the brightness of the image to be increased to daylight levels. The purpose of image intensification was to amplify the brightness of the image. The primary beam strikes the input screen after passing through the patient. The input or fluorescent screen absorbs the X-ray photons and emits light photons. The photocathode absorbs the light photons and emits electrons. The electrons are then accelerated toward the output screen. The input screen is a concave structure typically made of glass, titanium, steel, or aluminum and is coated with cesium iodide phosphors. The tightly packed phosphors absorb about 66% of the incident beam. Electrostatic lenses are a series of negatively charged electrodes inside the glass envelope of the tube. The purpose is to accelerate and focus the electrons passing from the input to the output screens. Magnification tubes electronically magnify the image by changing the voltage on the electrostatic lenses. They are also called multi-field, dual field, triple field, or quad field intensifiers, and they are capable of 1.5 to 4 times magnification. The magnification factor formula is as follows. Magnification equals the input screen diameter divided by the diameter of the input screen used during magnification. During magnified mode, collimation is not available and resolution increases. The anode and output screen are positive charged, and they are positioned inside the glass envelope immediately in front of the output screen. The output screen is a glass fluorescent screen. Total brightness gain is the measurement of the increase in image intensity achieved by an image intensification tube. This is determined by minification gain and flux gain. So the formula for total brightness gain equals minification gain multiplied by flux gain. The formula for minification gain is input screen diameter squared divided by the output screen diameter squared. Minification occurs as a result of the same number of electrons that were produced at the large input screen being compressed into the area of the smaller output screen. This causes an increase in brightness or intensity. Flux gain is a measurement of increase in light photons due to the conversion efficiency of the output screen. This does not take into account the conversion efficiency of the input screen. It only deals with gain accomplished by electrons to light conversion at the output screen and causes a decrease in resolution. Brightness gain is a measure of a conversion factor that is a ratio of intensity of the output phosphor to the input exposure rate. The conversion factor equals the intensity of the output phosphor divided by the mR per second. Output phosphor intensity is measured in candelas, which is the unit for luminous intensity. It deteriorates about 10% each year due to age. For density and contrast, ABC or automatic brightness control is the most common. ADC is automatic dose control, and ABS is automatic brightness stabilization. These systems automatically maintain satisfactory fluoroscopic density and contrast by adjusting the exposure factors as necessary for the part. Regulation of the primary beam occurs by varying kVp, MA, and pulse time. They have slow response times, so lags are apparent. Automatic gain control, also known as ADC, is part of the video camera control system. It responds very quickly to input information, but does not change exposure factors. For image quality, contrast is controlled by increasing the amplitude of the video signal, also by post-processing. Resolution varies depending on the geometrical factors and minification gain. Distortion is caused by OID. For shape is caused by image intensification tube. Vignetting creates an image intensity greatest at the center, and quantum model is a grainy appearance due to insufficient radiation. Video viewing systems are most commonly used for fluoroscopic viewing systems. Fluoroscopic video cameras use charge-coupled devices, also known as CCDs, which are semiconducting devices capable of storing a charge caused by light photons striking a photosensitive surface. Extremely fast discharge time to eliminate image lag, they operate at lower voltages, they have acceptable resolution, and they are not susceptible to damage from rough handling. The video monitor is a high-resolution output screen that receives final process signal. Flat-screen monitors require routine calibration and QA testing. For digital fluoroscopy, it is achieved through the use of high-power generator or operating in a pulse progressive fluoroscopy mode. The interrogation time is the time needed for the generator to come on and achieve the necessary kVp and mass levels. The extinction time is the time required to shut the generator down to prep for the next pulse. A TFT, or thin film transistor, is a pixelated unit with a photodiode that is connected to each pixel element. Last image hold maintains the last real-time image, and this reduces patient exposure by elimination of up to 90% of the dose. Dynamic recording can be done with any recording media, but typically with DVD. You can also record static images from fluoroscopy with any digital recording device. Digital fluoroscopy units process image from the CCD by sending an analog signal through an analog to digital converter, also known as an ADC. After being converted to a digital format, it can be post-processed for density, contrast, magnification, and filtration enhancement. Digitization also allows storage on a computer disk for transfer electronically. Mobile fluoroscopic equipment, which is known as C-arms, are extremely popular for surgical procedures. They allow for both static and dynamic imaging. Radiation protection is extremely important during fluoroscopy. Fluoroscopic units operate with a minimum radiation output possible for the efficiency of the unit. The tabletop exposure rate should not exceed 10 roentgens per minute and should range from 1 to 3 roentgens per minute. The minimum source-to-skin distance for mobile equipment is 12 inches, and the minimum source-to-skin distance for fixed equipment is 15 inches. Federal law requires a 5-minute audible timer in the United States, and magnification increases the dose due to the automatic brightness control. Lead aprons of 0.5 millimeters of lead equivalent must be worn by all persons present in the room except for the patient. The radiographer and radiologist must back around the room to be protected at all times. If hands must be in the primary beam, lead gloves of 0.5 millimeters of lead equivalent must be worn. The primary source of exposure during fluoroscopy is the patient. Exposure is the highest energy scatter occurs at a greater than 90-degree angle to the incident beam. The intensity is based upon the inverse square law, so step back from the patient when possible. Other shielding devices include a Bucky slot cover of 0.25 millimeters of lead equivalent, a lead drape that is 0.25 millimeters of lead equivalent, and the radiographer should also stand behind a radiologist. The radiographer has the duty to require anyone present to wear a lead apron, and fluoro should not be initiated until all comply.